Sponsors, we have them. Who are they?
Man, I had a little bit of a heart attack there. I wasn't ready for that.
Too much coffee today.
Apparently. So we've got three sponsors that contribute to this here show. We really appreciate all of our Patreon members for sure. But
Yes.
these are the three that currently stand above the rest. We've got Alex Taylor there at the Ultimate Final Lappers tier. Thank you, Alex. We appreciate you. And of course, the original patron, the guy who decided to do this before anybody else, Joe Bike. We appreciate you as well at the Only at Mattress Giant level tier.
Bah!
And then, of course, we've got Devin sitting there as well at the Only at Mattress Giant level tiers. Thank you guys, seriously, from the bottom of our hearts. And we got a heck of a show. I mean, Daytona 500 happened, right?
Is that what happened?
I
Come
think.
on. No. All right. Well, we got to get the music going then. This is the all new Final Lap Weekly. All new in that it's for this year or this week. I don't know why I said that. This is the show where a couple of guys talk about all things NASCAR. My name is Kerry Murphy. I am a longtime host of all things The Final Lap. Co-host is Toby Christie, founder and editor-in-chief at TobyChristieCom. That is his website, and he's also the same thing at RacingAmerica.com. He's a big wig. He's he rubs elbows in the garage area. Everybody knows who he is, unless he shaves.
Yeah, it was a little weird there at first, but things are starting to grow back in now.
Yes,
So
yes. You
we've
didn't
got
have
the
time
season.
to shave, right?
No, by the end of Daytona, it looked like this. So it was a long week, but we made it through it. And
How many hours did you spend in the media center?
oh man, so what I think the calculation was 80, 86 or something, somewhere in there.
You
80
sent it to
something
me.
hours.
Where is it
Yeah,
here?
somewhere in that range. It was ridiculous.
82 hours is what you sent me.
82. Okay, yeah. So 82 hours, and that's just media center time. That doesn't include the waiting at the airports, this driving back and forth from the track to the hotel, the working at the hotel.
Right.
So there was a lot of work that went on at Daytona. Not complaining, surely, definitely not complaining. Very happy to have done it. But it was a lot of work.
So the complete opposite of the surgical strike, which is what I do.
Yes. So if there was ever a complete opposite of your surgical strike, my week at Daytona would be the complete opposite of that. Yes.
If I spend 30 minutes in the media center, that's too much.
Yes, yes, it's true. I don't think many people could even draw you out of a lineup at this point.
Probably not, but I get the job done. So
That's true. But I did get to spend some great quality time with our buddy Davey Siegel.
nice.
I got to open up my hotel room the last night of the visit and got to drop him off at the airport. And, we hugged and kissed and said goodbye.
Wow, how sweet. That's awesome.
We didn't really hug and kiss. Well, we hugged. We didn't kiss, but maybe next time. We didn't want to make my wife and his girlfriend jealous. So
There you go. Yeah. Yeah, big time guy over there at Sirius XM, right?
yes, he is. Yes, he is. But with all the weird stuff that happened, travel got all jacked up for everybody. So just helped my
Yeah.
buddy out wherever I could. I was glad to do it, and it was cool to have somebody to spend a little bit of time with there because it gets kind of weird when you're in the hotel all alone and stuff, and just trying to grind away to get to the next stop.
So other media members aren't like enemies with each other?
No, I mean that's the thing. So I mean, it was actually as far as that goes, one of the more open weekends I've had as far as hanging out with people because we had the two rain delay days. So, I spent a night going out on the town with Jeff Gluck and had some dinner with him in there. It was
Nice.
nice to catch up with him. Literally my first race I ever covered as media in 2010 at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Gluck and I got off on a really good foot. We got busted for looking out the window in the media center, which apparently was a no-no.
Okay.
But I guess it was because there was some security stuff going on with somebody stealing somebody's laptop or something, so they wanted everybody seated, but we didn't know.
Hmm.
But so we were getting yelled at, and so it was like an ongoing joke the rest of that weekend, and we've kind of been friends ever since. So
Jeff's a good
um,
guy. I've had lunch with him too.
yeah, no, it was really good. So good time there.
And a funny Jeff Gluck story, of course, longtime listeners know. We were down on vacation at the San Diego Zoo, and I think it was like the ape exhibit or something like that. And he's right there. I'm like, Jeff. I spent like 5 minutes going, is that him? It can't be. No, he should be here, doing something else. Yes, it was. It was how we ended up in the same exact spot at the same exact time at the same exact place. It's so weird, but yeah.
It happens, man. It's the world is very small sometimes.
Yep. 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 So there was a big race, Daytona 500. Let's do the podium. How about that? We're trying to narrow things down now, trying to edit ourselves, trying to get to the meat of everything. So
Well, by the
everyone
time you
else
listen to
doesn't
our
matter.
show, the race is long over. It's not even
Yeah.
a thing where you're tuning into, man, I wonder what happened in the race at this point. So we're going to
Yeah.
just brush over the top finishers and kind of work our way into other storylines heading into Atlanta.
All right. So podium, we've got Christopher Bell, who did not run like top 10 most of the day, if I recall.
Yeah, and you get a lot of that at Daytona. A lot of guys
Yeah.
kind of hang out in the back waiting for the big one and try to work their way through it, and then they charge after that.
Now, some people, not many, but maybe many, I don't know, think that Alex Bowman actually won this race, but it's his best career 500 finish. He, in fact, finished second.
Yeah, and I know there was conspiracy theorists ringing out everywhere
A little bit.
online. I don't know why. I mean, we did obviously on the broadcast, they didn't give us the exact moment. Then later on, NASCAR revealed the exact image of when the caution was displayed, and it's pretty obvious in the photo that William Byron is ahead at the moment of
Yeah.
caution. They even explained when they determined the caution to be, which was when the two cars started working its way back up over the apron, which then gave them the chance of somebody plowing into him. So they wanted to throw the caution at that point. They were
Yep.
hoping he'd stay down in the grass, which did not happen. And as soon as he kind of dipped back up, that's when they threw the yellow.
People are insane these days. They literally do not believe anything. I mean,
No,
it's insane.
yeah, I mean everything has to be a conspiracy. It just can't ever be something that just happened. And I'll admit, sometimes I'm like, I don't know, that's kind of fishy. But in this case, what are they gonna do? Screw one of the Hendrick guys and give it to the other Hendrick guy? I mean, really, there's not
Yeah.
like what's the end goal here?
Yeah. Either way, it's a storyline. Again, I don't know how Hendrick Motorsports keeps doing this, but William Byron is the 2024 Daytona 500 winner. His first career on the lead lap, I think, is what he said in the 500.
Yeah, he was just happy to finish one of these things with a car that was intact and on the lead lap. So big deal for him.
It's Williams' 11th career win overall, 40 years to the day. Here's the headline that Hendrick Motorsports started running their first race. They go 1-2 in the sport's biggest race, the Daytona 500. It's the 302nd Cup Series win for Hendrick Motorsports and 9th Daytona 500 win, tying Petty Enterprises. And Rick Hendrick said in the media center that he had forgotten how awesome it was to win a Daytona 500.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, it had been 10 years since Hendrick Motorsports had won one, since Dale Jr. won it in 2014. So
Yeah.
it does get kind of hard to remember these kind of things. And that was the storyline heading into this race for that team, 40th anniversary, but all four drivers on the team had never tasted victory in the Daytona 500. So could one of them actually, rise to the occasion and get it done?
Yep.
And they did, even though they were both involved in the big melee, they kind of triggered it with the bump draft gone wrong from Bowman to Byron, which sent him into Keselowski, which then sent Keselowski into everyone.
Right.
And that was a pretty nasty big one. But at the end of the day, the Hendrick cars made it through enough to continue on battling for the win, and they got it done.
And William has won at Daytona. He just hasn't won the Daytona 500.
Right, yeah, his very first career Cup Series win was in the July at the time race. I think it was still July at the time. At
Yes,
Daytona.
I think so.
Yeah, I don't think they had moved it yet. So either way, the summer race at Daytona, he won, and now he's won the Daytona 500. So he's starting to really click off a lot of things. And like you said, 11 wins. He's only 26 years old, right? I mean, that's a lot of wins by the age of 26.
And listening back to some of his comments in the media center, he's gone from just being happy in the Cup Series to being there to, notching some of these big marquee things. I mean, he was the leader last year, 6 wins. He had the most wins over anybody else. Didn't get the championship, but he's definitely someone to watch. And to think he's a guy that made all parents look bad because he did it with video games.
Yeah, so anytime you yell at your kid for sitting there playing on the video games,
Right.
turns out you could be a top tier NASCAR Cup Series driver if you played the video games a little bit more.
So weird.
Let's all calm down when our kids are playing the video games, apparently.
Exactly. So good guy overall, too. I've talked to him a bunch of times. So you had some stuff about fuel mileage that you want to get off your chest. There's some beef.
Man. Okay, so after the race, we're kind of going through talk to guys, and the drivers are all just pissed. And it's like, why are you guys so mad?
Right.
They're mad that the whole 80% of this race was just trying to conserve fuel. None of them were actually trying to go anywhere. And if you recall back in stage 1, they're going 5 mile an hour slower than A.J. Allmendinger was running by himself. So
right.
it's a bit aggressive, but the whole point is we've got these stage cautions, right? So you know when you're going to have breaks in the race. So you know, okay, we know we're going to be making a pit stop before the end of the stage. We know once we have a stage, we'll be able to reload completely on fuel and tires. So all we have to do is get to our one pit stop during this stage. And if we save enough fuel in the early part of this stage, our pit stop, which will be fuel only, will be shorter than everyone else's pit stop, which will also be fuel only, which will then give us the track position up front, which will give us a chance to win this stage or at the end of the race, win this race. And good God, that is frustrating because these guys were just locked in these 2x2 or 3x3 packs. It looks on TV like they're battling it out like hardcore, like, wow, this is an amazing race.
Right.
But it's not. They're just locked in position. I think Denny Hamlin on his show Actions Detrimental called it 170 mile per hour pace lap. They
Wow.
literally were not doing anything. And the couple guys that wanted to do something, Chris Buescher, for one, was probably the most frustrated that I talked to. Said he couldn't do anything even if he wanted to. He was locked in. He was stuck on the bomb lane, and everybody around him was stuck as well. Nobody was wanting to go anywhere, and he wanted to move and get up some spots before it was time to start making pit stops, and he just couldn't do anything. You were just stuck. If you pull out, you're the one guy who's going to pull out, and so you're going to the back anyway. But most of the time, when there were two or three wide, there was nowhere to go anyway.
Well, I have an observation. I was watching the in-car stuff, and at one point they were showing the leaders, the guys in right up front. They were 100% throttle. Just a few cars back in the pack, they were running 40 to 50% throttle. So they've
Yeah.
got to be saving fuel, just
Mm-hmm.
not being in the front.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, at the end of the day, we still saw good racing when it was time to go. But this whole riding around for 80% of the sport's biggest race, this is a prestigious event. And sure, there's probably going to be some people that think I'm just whining and complaining about this, but I feel like in the Daytona 500 there should be no riding around. Period. I feel like it's no different than when they do the single file parade that everybody hates. This is the exact same thing, but they're just disguising it as too wide. So I don't like it. I think a lot of it has to do with the stage breaks. I feel like if stage breaks were out of there, just the not knowing when the next caution is going to fall throws away a lot of that potential strategy. Now, obviously, you can still do the fuel saving, and if you're going to be doing fuel only, it would take less to do that or whatever. But you just don't know when those cautions are going to fall, which kind of throws a lot of the strategy out the window because you just really can't plan around these planned cautions that we currently have. Again, I'm sure there's probably more ways to get around what we saw on Sunday, but like Chris Buescher said, it's been kind of building up to this point. It wasn't a situation where all of a sudden we're going fuel conservation mode. He said it's been really working its way towards this, and now Daytona 500, it was the worst we've ever seen as far as that goes. So we'll see. Noah Gregson says he feels like even though Atlanta is a similar style track, now that we will see completely different racing this week at Atlanta, he feels that it'll be kind of racing throughout the entire race. So we'll see if it's a Daytona only situation. But there is hope that maybe we don't see that kind of stuff this week.
Kyle Busch did it again. How? How does he keep doing it? How does he run 2.5 miles without a lug nut?
I was shocked because with the banking, the load, even if you're on the apron down there like he was, the load from the banking on the apron is
Right.
tremendous compared to a flat track and stuff like that. I have no clue how
Did he
that
keep
thing
like
held on.
sawing the wheel to make sure that it was going toward the wheel so it would stay on the hub? I mean,
I
I
mean,
don't get it.
the car looked pretty stable down there. It didn't look like he was sawing it back and forth. So I really don't know. I don't know how he's pulled this off. But I'm sure he's thankful, and his team guys that are no longer possibly suspended for a couple races are probably happy.
Yeah.
This could have been bad for him. Obviously, he didn't ultimately win the Daytona 500, but this didn't ruin his chance at winning the Daytona 500. They were able to get back out there. He worked his way back to the front very fast after this situation, and
Yeah.
ultimately had a good run. Just didn't get the win he was hoping for.
He does some amazing things with a race car, regardless of it's racing or not, or this or that. I mean, it's just how many times have we seen him uh, fix a spin or, recover from this or that, and now this. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, and then to hear Richard Childress key up the radio after the pit stop
Right.
and say "pull your heads out of your asses" was a pretty big thing too. So it was a lot of passion there. They felt like they had a real chance to win this thing, and they did. They were very fast. Ultimately came up a little short, but at least it wasn't because of a tire flying off and ruining the car.
Yeah. All right. We've got Rowdy Dragon. He's standing by. He wants to get into the fantasy NASCAR aspect of Daytona and the Daytona 500, as well as giving you the picks for this coming weekend, which may or may not be similar at Atlanta. So let's get into
after
Rowdy.
the week I had, I need him. So come
All
on,
right.
Rowdy,
Yes.
help me out.
We'll talk about that on the other side. Here is Rowdy Dragon with your fantasy NASCAR for Atlanta and Daytona. Here we go.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Final Lap Weekly Fantasy segment of the show. I am Rowdy Dragon. Well, how did y'all do at Daytona? It was a Monday. I know a lot of us played hooky to try to get that race in, and it was a typical Daytona. Hope you survived the carnage. And we get to do it all again at Atlanta Super Speedway this weekend. It's a pseudo speedway, as it were. Race is just like a super speedway. But before we get into all that, let's take a look at our stage leaders and our winner for the week. For your first stage, Gordon DuPont took that one. When the second stage rolled around, KG24 was up there. And your winner for the day, once again, Gordon DuPont 24. They hooked up with 225 points, 45 stage points, quite a bit of stage points. I didn't see much over that, maybe a point or two. That seemed to be pretty high. The maximum points on the day was 238, so we were pretty close there. Taking a look at myself, Toby and Kerry, Rowdy Dragon finished in the 46th position. I was rolling around in back about 300 and somethingth for the latter part of the race, and I was super comfortable with that, knowing that there was going to be some carnage and it would flip-flop, and it sure did. So 46th position, I'll take it. Toby Christie, he finished in 209th. Gary Murphy, Jimmy is back, finished in the 97th spot. So Toby's got a little work to do to catch him already. Now taking a look at our sponsors, I've got Joe Bike and Devin, but Alex Taylor, you need to give me a holler. Let me know what your gamer tag is, provided you are playing fantasy racing alongside us. And I'll fit you right in here next to Joe and Devin. So taking a look at Joe, he finished in the 157th position this weekend, and Devin, DL Racing King, 219th. So now this week's race, it was a perfect example of why I do not like to roster A-list drivers at Daytona. While a few squeaked through the carnage and it paid off dividends for some of you fantasy players, take a look and see how many drivers stacked up those stage points in both stages. There were only two drivers, William Byron and Kyle Busch. While it worked out for those two drivers, I see them better served on tracks where you have a much better shot at picking up stage points in both stages, along with a decent finish position to go along with it. Also, if you had 1, 2, or even 3 of the A-list drivers on your team and they wrecked out this weekend, it puts you at a deficit, as you now have 1 or more less driver picks to work with later in the game. So for me, I'm using the same strategy I used going into Daytona, using some driver picks that I normally would not use. Again, looking for the dark horses to sneak through any melee should it occur. Doing this will get me further into the game. While not paying in points right now, it will later down in the season. And if it doesn't work out early, I have plenty of time to dig myself out of that hole should it occur. I've used this method for many seasons, only this is the first time we're racing super speedway style tracks back to back. I'll be honest, it's a little disconcerting. Okay, so we're going to take a look at 3 drivers for you. Whether you choose to use them or not is up to you. A-list, B-list, or C-list. Now, first driver, Brad Keselowski in the 6 car. He's got 18 races run at the track with an average finish of 13.9. He's got 5 top 5 finishes, finishing up in the top 5 in 28% of his runs. He's got 11 top 10 finishes in that period. That's 61% of his finishes up there in the top 10. Pretty good. 201 laps led for him, and he has 2 wins at the track. Looking at Brad's stage point picture has him collecting stage points in 11 out of 20 tries, 2 of those being stage wins. Over the last 4 races since the repave and in the next-gen car while running for RFK, Brad ranks 3rd in average finish, and last season he came home with 2 top 10 finishes at Atlanta. So keep an eye on that team in practice and see if they back it up in qualifying. Brad is a real good super speedway racer. All right, a second driver we're going to look at, the 8 car, Kyle Busch. He's got 28 races run at the track with an average finish of 13.6. He's got 9 top 5 finishes, averaging top 5 finishes in 32% of his races. 13 top 10 finishes puts him up in the top 10 in 46% of his runs. He's got 558 laps led, and he has 2 wins to his credit. Looking at Kyle's stage point picture has him collecting stage points in 10 out of 20 tries. Only 1 stage win for him. Now, we all saw the rocket ship Kyle was working with at Daytona. You can bet a lot of fantasy players will be betting on him this weekend. There's no reason not to, considering his history at the track is pretty good here. He had a string of top 10 finishes, 5 of them, up until the 22 season when Kyle was not getting the best equipment and he was dealing with some sponsorship issues and whatnot. But he was able to put that season behind and grab another 2 top 10 finishes last year. Now this could be a good time to exercise a contrarian play, considering more than half the field will probably be rostering Kyle Busch, and as the contrarian, you will not play him, hoping that he has an issue or gets caught up in some sort of scrum. This could get you right back into the game, especially if Daytona didn't go as planned for you. Okay, so one more driver to look at will be the 7-car Corey LaJoie. He's got 9 races run at Atlanta. Average finish of 22.4. He's got 2 top 5 finishes and 2 top 10 finishes, averaging 22% up there. He's got 19 laps led, no wins, and collected stage points twice out of 18 tries and no stage wins. Now here's one of those backmarker teams that I'm talking about. You will probably come nowhere near using our driver allotments up for a team like this. But he has potential to shine on the super speedways, and he is that extra pick that will get you further into this game. LaJoie always seems to be at the right place and the right time on these super speedway tracks, almost coming up with his first victory right here at Atlanta, leading the closing laps before getting punted. It's the nature of super speedway racing, folks. But to my earlier point, who would you rather lose in a wreck on a super speedway? Just saying. Okay, so it looks like we've got 499 players listed in the TFLW League, but only 345 people are playing. I do want to give one quick shout out to somebody who had a bad day at Daytona. Our 345th player, last place, let's go number 9, coming home with 20 points this weekend. Tough go at it, folks. I just thought I'd throw that in there for fun this week. Hopefully let's go number 9 listens in and has a better weekend. All right, folks, well, that is about it for me over here. Before I go, I wanted to invite you over to listen to Rowdy Dragon's NASCAR Fantasy Sportsbook, breaking down those head-to-head matches. Make sure you come on over and have a listen to these head-to-heads. And I got a few more things to offer over there. Come on over and check it out. You can find us over at TobyChristieCom or your favorite podcatcher near you. All right, that just about does it for me over here. I want to thank you all for hanging out and listening to the Final Lap Weekly Fantasy segment of the show. I am Rowdy Dragon. I will talk to you again next week.
There you go. Rowdy Dragon doing it again. Just bang up job every single week with his fantasy NASCAR stuff. And oh yeah, I'm ahead of Toby by a lot. Hell yeah.
Well, I mean, it's Daytona. Chaos ensues.
Yeah.
I've, as funny as it is, felt somewhat fortunate when I looked at my roster without looking at where I was placed. I was like, man, I actually had a few guys that made it to the finish. I was like, this won't be so bad. I looked and I was like, ooh, this is pretty bad. So
can I confess something?
What's that?
I was on the road around, I don't know, like 2 hours before the race on Monday. So if the race had run on Sunday, I'd be screwed. And I didn't have my picks in yet.
Well, that is a problem. But luckily,
so I'm on my phone. I'm like, pull up the app. I'm like, give it to my wife. I'm like, all right, let's see. Well, let's pick this dude. Let's pick that guy. Let's do that. She's all trying to figure it out and stuff because I'm driving. So amazing. I got it in.
Well, now we know if you are panicked with your back against the wall, you put out better picks than usual. So we need to do that more often.
And looking ahead to this weekend, very interesting picks from Rowdy Dragon, Brad K, Kyle B, and LaJoie.
I think those are great picks. LaJoie has been amazing at Atlanta since the reconfiguration. Obviously, very similar to Daytona, which he just finished 4th at. I like that pick a lot. I really think Corey LaJoie is one of them. Brad Keselowski nearly won this race a year ago, finished runner-up to Joey Logano in a last lap dash. So I like that pick as well. I see good stuff there with Rowdy's picks.
Rowdy Dragon, of course, spanking us too. He finished 46th, and he said that's actually good for Daytona. So
yeah, it's one of those ones where if you just get a couple guys that finish, you're just happy. I was happy when I saw my lineup, and then not so happy when I saw where I was ranked. But I was just happy I had a couple guys that finished the race. It usually is not the case. A lot of times at Daytona, you can literally have your entire roster DNF. So yeah, it is what it is.
All right, let's get into news of the week, NASCAR style. And Toby's got a news story that's going to become big.
You have the feeling that this is going to probably be the storyline that ends up dominating the second half of the year, depending on if an agreement is not reached soon. But yeah, the NASCAR team owners and NASCAR are locked in a fierce battle, a negotiation, if you will, of the charter agreement for beyond the 2024 season, because the agreement currently ends at the end of this season. And to obviously team owners who have invested so much in this charter system, a lot of them are here now because they bought into this charter system, want the charter system to continue, right? Obviously.
You'd think, yeah. But
you don't want to spend $40 million on a charter and then the next year be told, oh, that's not a thing anymore, right?
yeah, you don't need that. You don't need that. Yeah.
So the team owners desperately wanted to protect this system that has given them a tangible asset that's now worth money, that we've seen continues to grow in value, which is a good thing, because back in the day a team folded up and that was it. All they had was whatever they could liquidate, which wasn't much. It was pennies on the dollar when you were trying to sell old cars and equipment. Now you have a tangible asset, a $40 million asset currently that's been growing exponentially year after year. So it's understandable why the teams want to keep this thing. NASCAR at the same time seems to be wanting to play, hardball with the amount of TV revenue that goes in if the teams are to keep charters and stuff like that. So anyway, the team owners called a meeting Saturday at Daytona to talk with Jim France about it, to kind of get the stalled talks kind of going again, because things have really stalled out
Right.
as far as the negotiations go. And Jim France declined to meet. So
Wow.
that is not what you like to see. The team owners have now hired an antitrust lawyer, easy enough for me to say, to help fight things for them. And we'll see how things go going forward. But every time we hear a new update on this, it doesn't seem like it's getting any less ugly. So, and this is a thing that is very important. That NASCAR can't run races without teams fielding cars, and with the current next gen system, if these teams don't want to field the cars, you're going to have 36 other people fielding some type of car that's coming out of the
Right.
vendors that NASCAR has chosen, and that's not a cheap thing either. So there's a lot of really ugly situations that could play out here. Hopefully none of it is a stoppage within NASCAR. And hopefully things get buttoned up before we even get to any possibility of those kind of things.
Now, where do the drivers fit in all this? Because I know NASCAR drivers as a whole, their salaries have been declining big time over the last 10 years. In fact, they're not even in the same ballpark as other sports. They're poor, dare I say it. I mean, it's not even close. So where do they fit?
Well, that's a big part of it. So currently, as things stand, the teams don't turn a profit each year. So that keeps the teams from being able to spend willy-nilly on a free agent race car driver, because they're not even turning a profit as it is. So that stands to make you believe that the teams would be able to pay drivers more. It wouldn't be as tied into sponsorship revenue. And if the teams are turning a profit, maybe the drivers don't have to bring sponsors, which has been a problem in recent years with drivers having to bring their own sponsors. So a lot of that should hopefully get cleared up if that ends up being the case. But again, it's a big question of what this agreement's going to look like between the teams and NASCAR. But if Hendrick Motorsports, the most successful team in the sport, hasn't turned a profit for a decade, that's not a good recipe for success for a healthy sport and a healthy team ownership ranks and drivers making the amount of money they should make for putting their lives on the line each week trying to win a race. So there's a lot of things that need to be done, and we'll see how it goes. But Denny Hamlin on his show again this week, Actions Detrimental, said he's at this juncture not as optimistic as Steve Phelps is, who's been talking openly in the press saying that a deal will get done and a fair deal will get done. Denny Hamlin says he's not as optimistic that a fair deal is going to get done. So we'll see how it goes. But as it stands right now, the two sides are still as far apart as they've been. And it doesn't look like either side's willing to budge just yet. But at some point, somebody's going to have to budge one way or the other. And it's just a question of who. But when you look at the one side turns a profit, the other side doesn't. I would think the side that doesn't turn a profit is the one that's not going to budge. But we'll see. I don't know. We'll have to see how it goes.
This is a prime story. This is a prime example of why you can't just go to NASCAR.com for your news. They don't have this anywhere. Of course, you go to TobyChristieCom and you're getting that's like the main headline. So this is a main reason why you need to get your news, branch out a little bit and get your news from elsewhere. TobyChristieCom, RacingAmerica.com, and that way you get like the full story.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's the thing. It's NASCAR.com, obviously, and to their credit, I understand they don't want to be touching this kind of a topic right now.
Right.
But there are other places that will. So yeah, like you said, reach out to other places, other outlets, and and check out all the news and get everything, get a good picture of what's happening, because this is the thing where if nobody talks about it until an agreement isn't made or whatever, then it's going to be a thing that shocks a lot of people if we do have a stoppage.
Right.
Something weird happens. There's all of a sudden 36 new team owners that show up out of nowhere. So it's one of those things that you have to really keep an eye on everything that's happening. And we'll keep an eye on this story as it goes forward. Like I said, they're probably about as far apart as they've been the entire time. And we're running up at the beginning of the 2024 season here. And at the end of this season, that charter agreement expires. So something
Right.
is going to have to change very soon.
Love the new TobyChristie.com look and feel. This is so modern, so cool.
Thank you. Yeah, it's very clean, very crisp. I think it's very easy to find what you're looking for. And we still got a few things we've been buttoning up on the back end to get a few things on the front end looking as well as we hope them to look, but things are going well.
You know what I really like is you can go to the main page on a browser and just leave it there, and all the headlines just scroll for you. And you could get like a good overview of what's going on in an instant. It's great.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. We like it a lot. A lot of hard work went into it. We had some really talented guys from Havoc Consulting work on it with us. We kind of told them what we wanted to see, and they delivered. So it looks great. We're very excited for it for this year. We've got a few other bells and whistles that we hope to unveil in the coming weeks to maybe next month. Particularly with that breaking news area up there, there'll be some things we can toggle on and off up there that we'll talk about when those things happen.
Yeah,
but some really cool stuff that we're working on, and really cool website. Glad that we've heard some great feedback from it. I'm glad it works good for you, and I'm glad it's a lot of people have enjoyed what it's looked like. So that's good.
And if you want to listen to us, we're right there up at the top under podcasts. We're listed first, at least last. Yep, we are listed first.
Yep. You click that, that'll take you straight, I believe, to the Spotify page, and then of course down in the videos area on the homepage, we'll have shows in there from YouTube as well. So.
Yes, we're definitely doing YouTube when we can, when Toby isn't slammed to the wall with 82 hours in the media center. We had a video ready for last week, but didn't work out. So
yeah, so the problem was, even if I wanted to get it out, the Wi-Fi at the hotel wasn't strong enough to get that done, because everything I do on my video editing software is all cloud-based. And so you have to have it all be able to load and save and things like that on the cloud. And with the very not super great hotel internet that I had that you experienced during our recording,
right,
it wasn't very conducive to that situation. So then if I wanted to get it done, it had to be in the media center, but every time I was in the media center, it was literally a log jam of stuff happening. So there just wasn't enough time to get it turned around. But
video's heavy. You need decent speed to upload a YouTube video for sure.
For sure, yeah. So this week should be a different story. The hotel, I'm a little more confident we'll have better Wi-Fi for one. And then two, there should be a lot less news things happening at Atlanta Motor Speedway where I can get things knocked out.
Any other big stories before we get into Atlanta?
Man, I just I want to say, like, it was a wild week at Daytona. You know, we talked about the 500 obviously, but the truck race was crazy. I mean, that was insane, right? There were crashes left and right. The Xfinity race, we had some crashes throughout the race, but I feel like it was more tame than like the truck race. But the ARCA race was nuts too. And we even had a teammate bailing on team orders at the end of that thing. Did you see how that all went down?
It was crazy, yeah.
Yeah. So Gus Dean on the radio, they're like, hey, you know, Jake Finch is wanting to do the teammate restart. You want to do that? And he's like, yeah, sure. And then in his mind, he's like, I'm not doing that. So he told them he was going to do it, didn't do it, and just kind of bailed, like left his teammate out there to dry, and his teammate ended up wiping out in the final lap crash while he went on to win. So it's like, yeah, I get you want to win the race, but just tell your teammate you're not going to do that so he at least knows. Don't make him think that you're going to help him and then not. That just seems rude. But
yeah. Totally.
But yeah, so the whole thing's interesting, but I feel like it was a really good week at Daytona. A lot of cool stories. You had Natalie Decker, the third female driver to ever lead laps in an Xfinity Series race. That was pretty cool. A lot of people didn't think she was even going to make that race through qualifying. She did. She finished 18th after leading some laps. So really cool to see. A lot of cool stories out at Daytona this past week. Even the ARCA, you look at the pole sitter, Willie Mullins. That was cool too. Willie Mullins has been working at this thing for like 14 years. And has had very little success in the ARCA ranks. Finally gets himself his first career pole. Obviously crashed in the race, but that was huge for him. You look at guys like Jordan Anderson finished third in the Xfinity race. A lot of cool stories throughout the entire week at Daytona.
You missed the biggest story. Austin Hill, third year in a row, he wins this race.
And he was wiped out in a crash. It looked like there was no way Austin Hill was going to win this one. And then as the race started kind of getting to the closing spots, he starts working his way in there. He gets to the lead, and it's like all the rain delays, all the crashing, him being swept up in a crash himself, and it's still going to end in an Austin Hill win, and it did. So it's incredible. There was a lot of things that took place at Daytona. You even had Nick Sanchez with his first career Truck Series win. So many different storylines, so many different cool things happened down at Daytona that it's hard to keep it all recapped, but it was a really cool week, really fun stuff. I even got to interview Joe Exotic's lawyer while I was down there. So
okay,
he was sponsoring an Xfinity car, and so just a lot of interesting things from Daytona. But I'm ready for a more calm, tame, like obviously we're going to have big ones. But just a calmer overall news week in Atlanta. Hopefully, we'll see how it goes, though.
Let's get into Atlanta Motor Speedway this weekend. The pack racing continues, this time from AMS. Yeah, a couple of years ago, the racing package kind of gave us another track with similar racing like Daytona and Talladega. Track stats look like this. Race number 2 of 36, 1.54 miles in length, banking up to 28 degrees. Front stretch 23:32, back stretch 1800, cup race 260, 400.4 miles, stages 60, 100, and 100. Last year's winner was Joey Logano in the spring, and William Byron won in the fall.
And he's coming off another win this past week at Daytona, so he would be a pretty strong candidate, you would imagine. Like you said, Logano is always pretty strong at these things. He led the most laps in the Daytona 500. Ultimately got wiped out in that big crash, but he
pole sitter, by the way, pole sitter.
Yeah. So I mean, that's a guy you would expect to be pretty good again this week too.
Yeah. All 3 series in action. Truck Series Saturday 11 a.m. on FS1, Xfinity Saturday 2 p.m. on FS1, Cup Series Sunday 2:30 p.m. on Fox. All times are Eastern.
Boom, boom, boom. Love it. So, man, I know Rowdy gave his picks. Who do you think's going to win this week?
This is tough. I almost have to like regroup and kind of figure out what happened at Daytona and look for this one, because it's similar, but it's still a shorter track and there's still going to be packs, and I don't know what to think, to be honest. I mean, it could be one of those crapshoot races again.
Yeah, it's going to take a little bit more handling, I think, than Daytona. And Daytona is a pretty big handling racetrack as it is. But like you said, with the track being tighter, you got the dog leg down the front stretch, things are a little different. I know at Daytona, the Toyotas were super strong. They've got a couple extra Toyotas in the group this year as well. I feel like the Toyotas get it done this time around. They didn't get it done last week because of all sorts of circumstances that were going on there. But I believe the Toyotas, with how much speed they showed in the draft last week, should be able to get it done. But we'll see how things play out. We still honestly don't know if we're going to see the fuel mileage 400 in addition to the fuel mileage 500 we saw last week.
Yeah.
So we really don't know, but once those things start kind of playing out for us, we'll kind of have a better idea. No practice going into things either. It's just qualifying and race. So a lot of unknowns going into the race. We'll have to see how it goes, but I feel like it's going to be a Toyota, and I think it'd be I'm going Legacy Motor Club. I feel like Legacy Motor Club came out swinging pretty good at Daytona, and for a team that was really down the year before, I feel like a Legacy Motor Club Toyota wins.
I don't know. I'm feeling Hendrick. I think they're on a roll. There's always momentum in this sport, and that it just seems like, that maybe it's Alex Bowman or something like that.
Wow, I mean, very well could be. I mean, he had a pretty good start, and that would be a big storyline for him. I know after the back issue last year, he would really like to get back on the right path.
Yep. Checkered flag is flying on this show. This has been the Final Lap Weekly. Catch us next week right here when we will recap the racing from Atlanta Motor Speedway and preview. It's Vegas, right? No. I don't know. What is it next?
Is it Phoenix?
Phoenix already?
Vegas? Oh, let's find out. I got you. Hang on one second.
All right. I need to print that thing out.
It is Vegas. You're right. And then Phoenix.
Okay. I need to print out the internet.
Yeah, you print out the internet.
I have last year's schedule. Is that similar? No, it's not. Okay,
no, they changed things up with moving Atlanta. So.
All right. So are we done? Yeah, we're done.
Yeah.
Boom. Time now for our giant list of Patreon paying people that believe in what we do so much that they give us their hard-earned cash so we can continue doing what we love here and kind of make it a living. Patreon.com/thefinalap. Join in on the giving fun. Thank you so much.
And join on the revolution. We've got tons of people like you alluded to that help push this show in the direction that we go. We appreciate each and every one of them. Let's go through the list here. We've got our latest Patreon supporter that has joined the fray, Mr. Aaron Spinelli. Thank you, Aaron. We appreciate you, buddy. We've got Devin over there. We mentioned him at the top of the show as one of the sponsors of the show. He's only at Mattress Giant level tier. Thank you, Devin. We've got Lalo. We've got Louisville Max, longtime player of the fantasy game over there with Rowdy Dragon, longtime supporter of the show. Thank you, Louisville Max. We've got Robert Keene, Jimmy B, Mr. Jimmy James, 1983. Quentin Whitaker, my buddy from Daytona. Got to meet up with him again this past week. Super awesome dude. Unfortunately, his family was unable to get there on Monday with him, but he was there in full force, and looked like he was having a pretty good time, so that was awesome. We've got Simon Green from across the pond, Troy Clark from down under, Peter Johansson, David Reed, Joe Bike, one of our sponsors as well. We mentioned him at the top of the show, the original patron of the show. Thank you, Joe. We've got Evan Taylor, Mike Hamilton, Nick Reed, Scott Clark, Alex Taylor, the current guy at the very top tier, the Ultimate Final Lappers group. Thank you, Alex. We appreciate you. We've also got Justin Kapasinskas. He's the man, huge Kyle Larson fan. And of course, the longest tenured listener of this show of all time. Nobody's been listening to the show longer. I am convinced Charles K. Miller is that guy. He's the dude. He's at the top of the list here. Thank you, Charles. And thank you, everybody else on this list. We appreciate each and every one of you.
So glad you did the list this week.
Yeah, it was weird last week having you do it. But
it was weird doing it.
I feel like you did good, though. You did really a good job.
All right. Patreon.com/thefinalapp if you'd like to join in on the giving fun. And Toby, you and I will chat next week.
We will. It's going to be fun. More big ones. Yay.
Crash, boom, bang.